3, 2, 1, go.
We made it.
We're here. Hi, everyone. Notice our little crowded setup here on our living room couch. We decided we did not want to do this in our collab room.
No.
And there's a reason for this, which if you were listening to one of my previous things before, the reason is that room has no windows right now. And
it's dark and gloomy.
It's really rough. Like the windows are blocked off because I'm still in the process of reading my audiobook of UFOs of the 21st Century Mind. I got to do a little more reading with that. But we blocked off the windows for sound insulation. And I just don't like to remove and put them back every single time. So they're on.
Mark says you broke the collab room.
As a result. Well, the other thing is the collab room will no longer in about a month be a collab room again, because my daughter will be coming back here in this house, and that's going to be her bedroom. So we're going to have to move the collab room to the other room, which is basically an office for Tracy. I'll get to bring myself, trap my muddy boots in there.
No.
But we will use the room together.
We will. Shoes off.
And that shoes off rule. This is the Canadian way.
It's the Canadian way. It's the one room in the house
where
I enforce it.
Anyway, I also have my own office downstairs, which is right now an absolute god-awful mess. And one of my goals will be to clean that out so that I can have that back again. If you ever looked at any old videos of me, you'll notice there's like a wall of books behind me. And that is actually my main office. I haven't been able to use it in months for all kinds of renovation purposes. So anyway, I'm looking at myself in a 10-second delay there. That's weird. So here's what we've got.
Wait, just want to say hi to everyone because we see everybody in the chat, and I know people are going to be watching this later too. But this is the most people we've ever had in here.
And, really?
And we have a lot of our usuals, and it's just really nice to see you all. And we apologize about yesterday. We've never had that happen before for any show. And we want to apologize to you about that. Without
getting into it, let's just say it was it was a hectic, crazy day. We expected to be back on time for you, and we were not. And so for that, we are very sorry. Thanks for coming back, and we can do it now.
Yes. So I want to do a little bit of housekeeping at the beginning. We'll get it out of the way.
That's important. You take the wheel.
Okay. So everybody knows we've been doing this website thing. I just want to clarify a few things here because Richard...
Website upgrade overhaul.
Yes. Because Richard made it sound like everything was going to change top and bottom. But really what we were going for was the undercarriage of the website. And as you dig down there, of course, sometimes you find a whole bunch of problems. And Richard told you about some of them. We had this crazy bot, this Shanghai issue of someone stealing all the resources.
We had someone from China, from Shanghai, hitting our site thousands of times a day.
That's right.
Or per hour, actually.
So our resources were they're redlined. They were maxed out. So what that meant for us is we were never going to be able to have a forum. So we've had to slowly dig away and find all of these places in the site where these resources were being stolen. We're not completely out of the woods. We've got it down to a really good, once we found that, we got it down substantially, but there's still a few things. So, but I just wanted to be sure, like in case people were expecting the whole look and feel of the website to change, that's not what we're doing. We're focusing on everything underneath first to make the forum happen. And then we found that registration was, not that great. So we have upgraded that. In other words,
once we change we have a back-end software that we switched out to use this. That has caused some registration issues with some of you and renewals of monthly membership and so forth. And what a hassle. So we had no idea any of this was going to happen. No. Thank goodness we have Evelyn, who is our web tech person.
Web angel.
And she is meticulously going through each problem one at a time. And we're trying to figure out why the new software has occasionally caused problems with PayPal. One of the things that we've done is we're no longer solely dedicated with PayPal for payments. This is really important. It's a huge thing. So we now have something also available just called Stripe.
Yeah, people, you won't even see it for the people who did register just in the last couple of days.
Right.
It just looks like you can use your credit card now without getting a PayPal account.
That's it. But it seems to work without a hitch, and we've been very happy with that. So that's fortunately, because a lot of people don't feel comfortable having to create a PayPal account and all of this, and now you no longer have to. So we're hoping that will not have any glitches and problems. So far, so good, right? That's
right. But I just want to tell people, if you have something come up, if you have error messages, if you have, anything that starts acting really strange, do email us and let us know. And one place you can do that is on the tab that says there's welcome and then there's login support there. You can use that. Or I sent out an email through MailChimp last night. Check your junk mail folder. And there is a link in there too that you can just report anything that's wrong. Great. So please do, because we want to find all the problems now and get it all sorted now so we can start building on top and get that forum and everything going. So don't feel bad. Send it. Let us know what's going on so we can figure out everything that's wrong. But so we can get all the good new stuff. So that's that. Oh no, there's one more thing. So you can now manage your account, and this is how you do it. You would go to
the front page.
You go to the front page and you'll see all the tabs: welcome, login, about. And then when you go to the member content tab, and then there's about 5 drop downs, you'll usually see the chat room in there. Below it now is the
bottom one
is my account.
Yeah.
So at some point, maybe go in there and just see it. Now, once you're in my account, it's just profile. Like, here's your first name, last name, and email. But there are 4 tabs. One is called home. One is subscriptions. One is payments. One is log out. So just have a look at those, because what we did is we made it easier for you. People would have to cancel through us. If we put higher levels in the website, which we're thinking about, you can go up and down at your leisure, and this new program will prorate it. So it manages everything, but you can do it. I mean, everything's in your hands now.
It'll give you, right. We've had people in the past who wanted to be able to cancel their membership, and they just didn't know how, and it wasn't easy in this.
It wasn't. It was a terrible system, honestly.
Bad. So we're really improving all of that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a good point. And we're also redoing a lot of the tabs on the menu. Tracy and I are just talking about that. We want to make it a little more logical, a little more up to date to what the kind of stuff that we're actually doing, as opposed to what we thought we would be doing a year ago when we started this site. So you'll see it all in the next few days. We'll be seeing some upgrades and changes.
Okay, so I just want to respond to some people. So you can still use PayPal. It's fine if you are a monthly subscriber and on your, there's a certain day of the month. You can go into your PayPal account and see what day of the month your money comes out. If you have a problem on that, if you're going to have a problem with PayPal, with this switch, it will be on that day.
We have noticed a couple of glitches with PayPal recurring payments. This is why.
Just since this big switch we did in the last few days.
Not with everyone.
No, it isn't with everyone. It's just certain people. So if you get an error message, you can go in there and check and see if there's something in there, or let us know and we can check.
We're trying to figure this out as well. So,
but you're fine to use it. It's not a problem. You don't need to switch.
Someone want us PayPal folks to switch. Earlier today, I was like yelling in the kitchen, we should get off of PayPal altogether, get everyone the hell off of it. But in reality, if it works, just keep working with it. It's fine. I got a little worked up earlier today because of the PayPal issues. That's true.
And DCW56, I know I've seen you on YouTube. I've seen you all on YouTube. And I know you're such a great supporter like everybody else. Yeah, you guys should start letting folks be patrons. Like Patreon. I support a few of my favorite YouTubers. Thank you so much. And we've been thinking about Patreon a lot, but it's also another Google-based thing. So we're hesitant that it could get pulled down.
Here's what I'm thinking about it, and I think we've talked about it. I think Patreon has a use. One thing that we want to do, like I really want to do, is have higher level professional video creation.
Yes.
Can't do it. I mean, we do the live stream.
the images.
I mean, look, and there's no way that we can afford
That's what
someone to do that right now, and we want it. I want it. So we've noticed that a lot of the Patreon accounts, you know, those people who have patrons, you'll have like a specific goal that you want to achieve with your Patreon supporters, and I could easily envision having kind of a higher quality studio level professional situation set up. So that is a possibility, and we're going to keep that in mind. But as Tracy was saying, with Patreon, they've had an issue with deplatforming of late that makes me a little nervous. So I'm willing to do it, but I also do not want to be dependent on Patreon, because I never know when they're going to pull the rug out from underneath me. So is that a good answer?
It is a good answer.
Yeah.
Plus, I was just reading what everyone says. Mark, you're funny. I'm on the 10-year plan. And yes, I agree. Smoky Mountain, got to get the back end working first. Totally.
Yeah, the basic plan is, as far as the website upgrade, then maybe we can move on.
Yeah.
So the website upgrade has involved primarily cleaning up the original software that we used to set up this site was something called Wish List, and it was fine. I mean, it got the job done. It managed the members, but what we learned after a little while is that it's a bit old, severely needed updating, and it just wasn't able to do the upgrades that we wanted. So and that primarily meant we wanted a forum, and we still are going to have a forum for all members, not just highest level members, silver, gold, whatever we do in the future, but everyone is a member. We want automatically to have access to this forum so that all of you can participate in the forum. And I think that'll be good for everyone. But for us to have the forum, as we were saying, we needed to do a number of upgrades, and it's a little bit time consuming. We have quite a few members here, and so we've had to have Evelyn switch everyone over to this new system. It required us a little over a week ago to have the site down completely for like a day. It's back up and it's running and it's all well and good, but yeah.
I wanted to pull it down tonight because we ran into another problem, but I don't think we're going to do that.
Okay.
Right?
Do you don't think we need to?
Well, we had a big leak happen suddenly.
Well, we'll deal with it. The leak is simply a lot of our members-only content apparently is available right now on iTunes. So a lot of the audio, and this happened since the switchover.
We just found out about an hour ago.
It's like roll the eyes. Here's something else to deal with. To me, that's a minor issue. We'll get that under control soon.
We will have that under control hopefully by midnight.
Yeah. And I hope it won't require us to do anything like shutting down the site for a couple of hours. But if so, then sorry, but this is all minor stuff. In the long run, this is all good, I feel, because I don't get excited about a lot of things. Tracy can tell you. It takes a lot. But I'm excited about the potential for where this site will be in another few weeks or month. I really believe.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's going to be just incredible, and I think you will agree. You'll get to experience it, and that'll make us happy.
Honestly, I just get frustrated because I can't keep reading Dyatlov Pass.
Oh, so if you could have been here like 2 hours ago.
I'm so upset because
So this is our day today, and then we're going to get to your questions because I have them all lined up here. So earlier today, I did a YouTube live on Julian Assange, which, by the way, I'll come back to that in a moment. So I wrote that all out this morning. Tracy was working. She wanted to just read Dyatlov Pass stuff, and she couldn't all morning. And I would come back into the room and look at you, and she would be totally stressed out, just like dealing with one problem after another after another. I felt bad for you.
You know, it's just like, it's a good thing, right? We're unearthing the problems. We need to know everything that's going wrong. So it's a good thing. It's just when you're in it, of course, it's horrible. You know, just don't want to let anybody down. So
it's stressful for me too. So then I did my YouTube thing, which stressed the hell out of me. Who knows why? I think the Julian Assange thing it affects me personally. I think it affects everyone, but I feel very personally affected.
I know.
by what he is going through. I've strongly supported and identified with him for many years, and just to watch what he's gone through. And he's just at a much more prominent level than what I do. You know, there's only a very few Julian Assanges in this world. There's a bit more people at this level where we're at, and we're in danger, just like he is in danger. He's just way more prominent about it, and he's getting the brunt of the force right now. But anyway, it was depressing. It was hard, and it was kind of emotional for me to do that. After that was done, I came in, I joined Tracy. She was stressed out over all the stuff that you're doing, not getting to the Dyatlov material.
By the way, we were really happy about doing this. This was probably our...
Oh, yeah, and then we felt
this
totally
was fun for us,
awful
right?
about missing you guys yesterday.
Yeah.
And then dealing with the membership issues, and it was like...
It's okay now.
So here we are. So now we're back.
Here with you. And Technomage said you did a great job with the Assange. Very succinct and powerful.
Thank you. I'm going to put a text version of that out on our site later today. In fact, if you notice, if you check new post, just before we went on today, I put the text version of my Saturday show from last week. That was on controlled disclosure. So this is my new system. Every Saturday, or if I'm lucky, Friday evening, I'm going to sit down and write my Saturday live stream. I like to write them out. I don't like to just wing it anymore. So I like to have a written piece. It's usually like 2,000 words or so. And I can write that out. That's what I did this morning. And that's what I delivered on Julian Assange. I did the same thing last week on controlled disclosure. So my original thought was to put them out for members, the text version for members only. And then we decided not to because we were afraid of the Chinese stealing this material and putting them on websites. And even if that is true, my attitude is I don't care anymore. I want this up for members of our site. And so that's what I'm doing from now on. So there's no graphics, there's no texts. Just forgive me for that. But the text is there. So for control disclosure, it's there. And I will probably, before the day is out, put the text up for the Julian Assange piece. But anyway, thank you for that. I appreciate the feedback. Here's one member's question that is kind of related to everything else we're talking about here.
Okay, but wait, before you go there, I just
Yes.
want to say because, oh, sorry, Bran, I called you Brian, sorry. Bran and people are asking, you know, where is everybody? Because we're used to the YouTube thing where there's like chat like crazy. But this is members only, totally unlisted.
Right.
And so this is like our private small group. It's like 20 of us hanging out. It's rarely ever more than 20 of us. And so you can chat in there all you want, but just know we can't keep up if you guys go fast anyways. It's better if you go slow, and we'll try and catch everything. But and so don't worry about the likes on the video or anything. I mean, you can if you want, but it's like I said, it's 20 of us.
Yeah,
and
this is just a private.
This is a private
unlisted
hangout. That's
which means this video will never be searchable on YouTube or on the internet. It's not. It won't be found.
Right.
It is only reachable by link, and so if the link is provided, which it is on our website, that's how you get here, and that's the only way.
That's right. And what we usually do is we alternate between what people have written for questions under this post and what you guys are doing in the chat. So we sort of do our best to go back and forth, but we usually favor the chat. That's why, you know.
Well, I've got the post,
but not everyone can make it at this time. So Richard's going to have the post, and I'm going to try and keep track of you guys in the chat. So
let's jump in because it's
let's do it.
So I wanted to start with this one. This is not really an intellectual question, but it's a practical question. This is from Jason, who just asked, how many emails do we get in a typical week? He says, just for us fans who wonder if it's worth to bombard you with information or not. He gives us multiple choice, which is kind of funny. He says, is it 50, 250, 1,000, 1,500 plus? Well, let's answer that first. So I actually was asking you about this, and I said, I don't know, do we get 50 a week? And, and Tracy laughs.
Are you kidding me? That's what...
So we decided it's actually more than 500-600 a week of all things that we get.
Yeah, 50 would be wonderful.
Yeah, so we get because we get them from different sources.
That's not including all our other email. That's just focused.
So we get about 500 plus per week.
Yes.
I think that sounds about right. And that includes, I'm also including comments from you guys.
Other things you've seen.
Or things that I'm reading that I will from time to time try to reply to. It's difficult, you know.
Yeah.
But as far as
So
directed
some of those
emails,
things we counted as emails just to help.
directed focus emails, probably at least 250 though per week.
Yeah.
Like without a doubt. And then just related, Jason asked, how often are you leaked real good information by people either online or in person at organizations? I would say a fair amount of times. At least once a week we get something that's very, very interesting in.
Yeah, it's hard. Yeah, and to be honest, we can't catch everything. Sometimes that happens too.
It's hard to say what constitutes a leak.
Yeah.
You know, it's like insight. Is an insight the same as a leak? Someone who's worked within an interesting organization, military or otherwise, who has information. I mean, look, we have people on our site who communicate somewhat regularly with us, who I would say qualify in that category, or people at least with access to sensitive information. But there are definitely at least one or two a week, I would say, that provide me with something. And then conferences. Usually at a conference, there'll be a couple of people. A couple. I mean, not always, but often.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I would say there.
Often at conferences too, you go through a lot of people because everybody wants to tell their story, and I get that. I mean, we get that.
Right.
Everybody's had these unusual experiences, but each one takes a lot of time. And so sometimes you'll get to someone who's got really some information that's big.
Yeah, like it's always, you got to walk this line between, because I want the information, but it's tough. I'll be honest with you. Like a lot of people who come up to me at conferences, they want too much of my time.
Well, they just want to tell their story. Understandably, right? They want someone to talk to.
I remember poor Travis Walton. This is like 9 years ago. We did a thing it's long before I knew you. We were in Pennsylvania, and Travis was there, and we've always been friends. If you know Travis, he's a very shy,
quiet.
Yeah, he's a quiet person. So I was there at this event,
reserved,
and poor Travis. It's like the end of a long day. Like 6 o'clock, and everyone's exhausted, and he is sitting at his little table, and this guy, we're getting ready to get some dinner, and this person would not leave Travis alone, and he's just telling Travis whatever he's telling him, and poor Travis is like sitting like with his arms folded, looking up, completely beaten by this man. And I just remembered rescuing him, saying, well, we got to go get some dinner. But like this, it happens. And I have total sympathy for people who do that. I mean, you know, you've got an opportunity. You want to talk to myself or Travis or someone else like that. But it can be very exhausting. That is the truth. But on the other hand, it's worth it for me. Like I say this all the time. It's absolutely true. I learn more from people who attend conferences than I feel they could ever learn from me. So I realize it's in my interest, it's in our interest to listen. And it for every like 10 people, maybe 3 or 4 have really great information, and the rest, it's just not always. But
I mean, it's all great information. It's, you know, but it's not always information you can use as the big information.
Worst people I have ever dealt with, I would say, are we didn't go to the moon crowd. They are the worst, most obnoxious, difficult, annoying people.
Generally speaking.
Consistently. Tracy's trying to modify it. I don't understand it. What is it about? Like, it's fine. You want to believe it. I don't share that opinion. But do they have to be so obnoxious? I swear to God, this is their attitude. It's like you're either woefully ignorant or you're intentionally disinforming. It's like, and since I don't think you're woefully ignorant, Mr. Dolan, you must be working for the cabal. Like, oh my God, just stop. Okay. Anyway, I don't know what got me off on that. So let's keep going to some questions.
Okay, wait. Kent is saying, quit bumping the mic. We're actually nowhere near the mic.
We're bumping the mic. You know what it is?
What?
The mic is on this table. Why don't we move your foot away from the bottom here of that
That's
thing.
Nowhere near the mic, though.
No, but you know what is? This microphone picks up vibrations. So if the cup goes on there, boom, it's going to make a noise. That's what's going to happen. That's what I believe. Kent, thank you. We will be a little more careful. So we will watch our feet. And how's that? And
Yeah,
if,
do you think
if
that's
this
what's doing
taps it,
it?
I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
You
picks
picked up
sound.
the drink. Okay, good to know. Thanks.
Shall we continue?
Yes,
I have a question here from Eric.
Okay.
This is an interesting question, and I'm glad he mentions this. This is Eric Karch, who writes, this is in the post below the AMA, so anyone can read it. It says, being Jewish, I was wondering if there have been any interesting UFO sightings in Israel. Also, this is the one that's really interesting. I have been listening to some of David Icke's views on Israel and his displeasure with the Israeli government and military. He says, I don't believe he is against the Jewish people, and he is very clear about his thoughts on anti-Semitism, which he certainly is not, in my opinion. But he has opened my eyes to the situation in Israel, and I consider myself woke on the subject now, whereas I have been blindly supportive of the state of Israel over the years, simply because I am Jewish. As I dig deeper into the subject, my mind has changed quite a bit lately, and I would love to hear your thoughts on the Israel-Palestinian issue. I think Ike speaks truth about it. See you Friday, now Saturday. So that's from Eric. Eric, I really appreciate that question. And although I'm not Jewish, I grew up in New York City and Long Island, and I've always considered myself an honorary member of the tribe, just having gone to high school, gone to proms, had roommates in college with Jewish friends of mine. I have a lot of Jewish friends. I'm in New York. I've been mistaken for Jewish more times than I can recount. So although I'm not, I'm very close to many, many Jewish friends. So having said that, I have also had a, I have long had problems with a lot of America's attitude and relationship to Israel in general. I support Israel's right to exist. I have no problem with that at all. But I also am an American. I'm not an Israeli. And I have often felt that my country, my government people talk about Russian influence in American politics. My goodness, Israeli influence in American politics is so powerful, overwhelming. It just makes me throw up my hands sometimes. And the fact is that people like myself are afraid, and I mean afraid, to talk about this publicly. If you're not Jewish and you talk about this publicly, you can get railroaded big time by the media. They will go after you for being anti-Semitic, no matter how ridiculous the charge is. So for my part, I haven't steered away completely from it, and I'll speak my mind when it comes up and when it's relevant to do so. But I have to be really careful about anything I say relating to Israel as a public person. And I'm not alone in that. This is the norm for any public figure. You've got to be super careful with anything you say about Israeli politics, or you can be smeared instantly with being anti-Semitic. And this is what's happened to Ike, by the way. David Icke, I've listened to Ike for years. And overall, I find Ike's politics to be very spot on with most of what he talks about. It doesn't mean that we have to agree with him or with anyone on every single thing. We're all different people, and we're all entitled to have different conclusions on certain things. And it doesn't mean we need to condemn someone for that reason. So overall, however, I find Ike to be worth listening to, for sure. Not always. I listen to Ike talk kind of off the cuff on a lot of things. There's enough Ike on YouTube where you can tell he's basically spitballing it, and he's no more insightful on certain matters than anyone else, frankly. But there's other areas where you can see he's done his homework and he knows what he's talking about. So relating to the Israeli-Palestinian issue, look, the Jewish people took Israel and they made it into an incredible infrastructure. They've created an amazing country, and they deserve all the credit for that. So, on that basis, I will completely admire and support what they do. But it's also true that Palestinians have been treated like second-class citizens in many, many ways. And everything having to do with the West Bank has been, all you have to do is look at a map of, see where the Palestinian people were in 1948 and where they are today, and they've just been squeezed right out. To me, it's very analogous to treatment of the native population in North America by the European settlers. They just push them out, squeeze them out. So, I can't really, I think it would be unwise for me to insert myself into that discussion any more than I just have. I don't know all the issues involved. You know, I know some of the issues involved and I have certain opinions, but I don't know that my opinion is any more valid than yours or anyone else who's listening right now. So I'll just leave it at that. But anyway, yeah, I'm glad that someone brought this up. If for no other reason than for me to just give you the opportunity to know that I am often in terror of this question publicly. And, you know, when people talk about global conspiracies, inevitably you hear about the banking conspiracy, and there's a major financial control that exists over this world. And yeah, a lot of that control, not all, a lot of it is Jewish or Jewish individuals. And so what does that mean? Does that mean it's a Jewish conspiracy? Well, I've never gone that far, and I don't think that I would ever go that far and say such a thing. I would just say that many people at the top of our power structure globally appear to be Jewish, but not all. And so I wouldn't call that a Jewish conspiracy. But I would say that Israel has an inordinate amount of influence over American national security policy. The American neocons, many of them are very beholden to Israel, and I don't consider that healthy. So if we had the same standards for Israel that we do about Russia, well, I think you know what would happen. So how about that? Is anyone trashing me yet for my...
No. I was, you know, because when we started, I never got a chance to sort of read back into what people were saying. So I was trying to read up the chat.
Okay.
And then, of course, so I'm not up to date.
Anything else that you see there, or I can keep going?
Well, Mark's asking, are you disappointed, unless you want to stay on topic?
No, read what you have there.
Okay.
I think we're ready to move on. What is Mark saying?
Are you disappointed that no profound follow-up disclosure after the Tic Tac UFO incident? Does the Tic Tac release demonstrate there is a separation of powers if a breakaway civilization exists?
Let's talk about the Tic Tac. So I actually got into this a bit last week on my YouTube lecture, Control Disclosure. And I just put the text of that up on our site, which you can read. So my feeling is it's important to note that there has been no mainstream media follow-up on the release of the Tic Tac UFO. That was December 2017, and there's been nada ever since. Some good investigative journalism by George Knapp out of Las Vegas, but that's not national stuff. So there's been none. New York Times has not touched it. Washington Post, ditto. Mainstream media, TV news by and large has not touched it ever since. So that means to me that the mainstream media's effort was never serious to begin with on this. And I've been saying this for a while, and I think that's true. I don't think they're serious about this subject in any way. But what has happened is that the release of these videos is significant. And, you know, I will just reiterate my position on TTSA. I think that TTSA is legit. And I think that, yes, they've got people with CIA who've been there, and they've got spook scientists like my friend Hal Puthoff, and they've got Luis Elizondo, who's a career intelligence officer. So what's the solution? Does that mean don't trust anything that they do? And there's a knee-jerk reaction that people have, which is like, don't trust them because they're from the CIA. I just think that's kind of silly, and I don't agree with that attitude at all. I would say that you have to recognize they have an agenda. What is that agenda? Well, I know from Puthoff specifically, and I will say this again and again, that man believes in disclosure. And I'm telling you, Hal Puthoff believes in genuine UFO disclosure. I have talked to him personally about this, and I absolutely believe he's telling me the truth. Yeah, I think he's sincere. And he has also said to me, this is not an easy thing to do. It's really tough. There are all kinds of tangled issues here involved. And so the question that everyone is facing is, how do you do it? Like, how do you really do it without being overwhelmed by lawsuits and craziness and unforeseen results? Like, the people at the top of our structure are afraid of this issue. And I've received other communications from other individuals that I believe that they are who they say they are, and they convey the exact same terror of disclosure. So that being the case, how do you do it? I think what the TTSA team is doing is actually within this confined structure, I think they're doing the very best that one can do under the circumstances, which is they are aware of a number of classified pieces of information on this subject, including videos. And they have been trying through their allies and friends within the government to get as much of that release as possible. That's what they're saying, and that's what I believe. So they don't have all the power. Putoff and Elizondo and Semivan and the rest, they're just people who have had some influence and some position within the community. And some of these guys more than others, some less than others. And they're simply doing what they can do to move this issue forward. They don't have all the cards. Now, I have said, and I've not spoken to Putoff about this, but my inference is that people like Putoff would very much like to make a little bit of money out of this. How? By getting access to the more materials from crash retrievals, studying those, making developments in material science, and making a ton of money as a result of it. Like if I were in his position, that's exactly what I would want to do. You know, why can't you do both? You achieve a disclosure, get the information out, and position yourself for some nice financial opportunities. I could easily see that. But in terms of nefariousness, that I'm not seeing. But what I do say is that there's a deception involved here too. This is why I call it controlled disclosure. I don't say that it's an evil deception, but I do feel when you have people like Elizondo talking about and writing about UAP as opposed to UFO and saying things like, as he just recently did, we don't really know what they are. We have no idea what we're dealing with. It could be way more complicated. That I consider to be somewhat deceptive. But I understand why he's doing it. Look, you can have 70 plus years of crash retrievals and not know a little bit what the hell you're dealing with. These people know what they're dealing with. They've got materials that have been recovered. There have been bodies. There's way too much of this smoke for it not to be fire. But yet they go through this fiction, this pretense that, oh, well, we don't really know what we're dealing with. They do that for a reason. And the reason I feel is because they're trying to have a public conversation, right? So they're trying to reposition this subject of UFOs in such a way that they can actually move forward with it and not get roasted by the rest of the establishment that is dead set against this. You know, the establishment is not of one mind. Establishments never are. So I think what's happened is these guys are positioning themselves in as careful a way as they can to move this argument forward. So we can understand their motivations for it, but that doesn't mean we have to accept their motivations or accept what they say. Like I, for one, have to remind people that there are people in that world who know absolutely full well what this phenomenon is. And it's, you know, not, oh, well, we wonder, we don't know what they are. It could be complicated, like Elizondo says. To me, that's simply for public consumption only, but for reasons that are understandable.
Now, Brian just said he left a couple of questions regarding this subject that you'll have in here if you have everything that was under the post.
I think I do. I copied and pasted everything onto this. So let me scroll down and let's see if I can find.
And while you find, well, no, I'll let you do that first. And then I'm going to read
Brian.
the comments that you guys were writing about this. I'm going to go back and read some of those after this.
Right. So actually, let's take this here. So Brian, I've got your comments here. He says, regarding the Nimitz encounter, what do you think about reports that 2 U.S. Air Force officers collected the radar data tapes from a Navy vessel and aircrew? Is there any significance to this? And does this reveal anything about the relationship between the U.S. Navy and Air Force? And then he has a follow-up question, which let me get into that in a minute. Yeah, so I don't yet know all of the details. I do know that there have been radar data tapes that have been collected. I have to say I didn't realize that it was U.S. Air Force that collected them from the Navy. But what's interesting about that, if it's true, and I'll just believe you for the moment, that this is an old, this story has been told before. So the U.S. Navy's had UFO encounters for many, many years, obviously. And this is not the first time that Air Force personnel have gone onto a Navy vessel and strong-armed Navy personnel to get UFO information from them and alienating the Navy, all the Navy guys in the process. This goes back to the 1940s. So that I believe. Now, the significant thing is, well, to answer your question fully, the relationship between the Navy and the Air Force. Look, I mean, technically speaking, they're all part of the U.S. Department of Defense, and so they all answer to the same boss, it's the Secretary of Defense. But they are separate services. They still have rivalry, obviously, and at the highest levels, I don't know for sure, but I think we can assume that there continues to be compartmentation that they will have from each other. But I could not tell you how much and how significant that is. There may be members of our site who have better information on that than I do. What I would say is the radar data tapes are significant, and I have known about this. What I don't know is what is the exact data that they show and how much they confirm, but I have been led to understand that they do have a lot of confirmation and that there are other witnesses, by the way, from that battle group where the Nimitz had their encounter in 2004. So there are a number of other witnesses, and I suspect that their testimonies will come out. A couple of follow-ups that he writes here.
Brian just said, see the Nimitz encounter animation, the famous one, follow-up video.
All right, great. Well, I'll look into it.
Okay.
Thank you. Brian also asked, do you think it's possible that the Nimitz encounter is the result of a secret artificial decoy program using high-frequency radio or a sophisticated new tech? That's an interesting question. My inclination is to think no. I don't know where that suggestion comes from. I'm guessing you have some information that states or suggests this is the case. But the thing is, the speed of that tic-tac object, we're talking upwards of 9,000, 10,000 miles per hour from hovering. So the question is, how do they do that? And I've not yet come across a reasonable explanation from anywhere that says that our classified world, even like a breakaway civilization, has this type of capability and is doing this, or at least I haven't heard any credible evidence to that effect. So if you do, please let me know, and you can let me know in a post below this AMA, for that matter, and I would be grateful for that. But I have no reason to think that that's the case right now. My inclination is that UFO is not from our society, and that it's I would say it's extraterrestrial. That's what I believe currently. Final comment, just from Brian. This is unrelated, but I'll just read it. Do you have any comments about Dr. Bruce Cornett and his claims about detecting geomagnetic anomalies related to UFO activity at Pine Bush? I know who Bruce Cornett is, and I've heard about claims of geomagnetic anomalies, but I've not investigated it, so I can't answer that question. How are we doing? Do you have anything there?
I'm just going to read this. I haven't pre-read it. David just said, seems to me that those in control over the secret would have long realized it would eventually get out, and that fascism is the only social model that would give them a chance of keeping any control.
Yeah, whoever said that, I think I agree with that.
That's David. And then Brian
David
just
Coleman
said about what you just, reading his question. No source information, just exploring all possible answers to the mystery.
Well, we can look back into that. As far as what David just said, for many years, I would give lectures after I wrote After Disclosure. For like 5 years after that, I would incorporate into various lectures of mine what I call disclosure scenarios. And it took me several years really to think through the different scenarios as to what I thought was most likely. And one of them And it became over the years like my strongest bet is what I used to call fascist disclosure. And I do think that's modified into what I'm now calling controlled disclosure, actually. But actually, this is the new version of. So the point is, yes, we are moving into a world. Everyone can see this. All of you guys can see this, where surveillance and control, and that means not just information control, but economic, financial control, are being ever more tightly implemented in our world. And if that is the case, I think it's almost an inevitable consequence of the structure of our technology, to be honest with you. That is, our economies are so automated now, our technology is so sophisticated that there simply aren't going to be the jobs available for people that you need to have if you're going to have a free society. In other words, for a genuinely free society, people need jobs. They need to have their own source of income. You can't be free if you're not making your own money. You can't be free if you're going to get a stipend from your government or from the state every month. You have no freedom. You have no leverage. But we're moving into that world. So with that being the case, we're seeing slowly but surely a system that includes culture and that includes information control and everything else being put into place to create a new system. And that is, for lack of a better word, it's a fascistic, totalitarian type of system. And this is the form in which disclosure is possibly going to take. That is, total control over the narrative is necessary before any kind of disclosure comes out. Because I've been trying to develop this idea for the last 5+ years. Disclosure is inevitable, but it has to be done in a way, at least from the point of view of the secret holders, so that as not to destabilize their grip on power and to destabilize the society as we understand it. And so that means you have to avoid people like myself and others who are going to be publicly asking uncomfortable questions about that disclosure, as in, oh, disclosure. So what about crash retrievals? What about alien bodies? What about the cover-up after all these years? How do you explain how you've disinfoed us for an entire human lifetime? Like, they don't want those questions at all. And so control over the narrative is paramount, and that can only be done through the implementation of essentially a global type of fascist society. And we are indeed not so slowly now moving toward that. So I do think that's the real danger. And in a weird way, like I see, as much as I like Puthoff and respect the TTSA guys, they are in danger of contributing to that. It doesn't mean that they want to contribute to that. It just means their power is limited. So I think they're trying to fight their battle, and it's up to other folks like myself and like other people who are engaged in this topic to bring the full import of what the UFO phenomenon really means, so that we can have an honest discussion about this in the public. All right, I don't know how much sense that made, but let's move on to the next question. Good, thank you for the question. Oh, I've got one here, unless you've got one there.
You go ahead. Well, see, what happens is people comment, so that keeps me at the bottom of the chat, and then I try to go up and get the old questions and comments. So I go up and down, so it gets a little crazy. And some people were saying that they think some people are in the chat on the site. If you're watching this and you're in the chat on the site, we mostly monitor the YouTube one, except for Satya. So try to get
Satya
in the YouTube chat.
Satya doesn't like the YouTube. But look, seriously, man, just bite the bullet.
He's not
get
going
to the YouTube.
to.
He's not going to.
No.
Well, we think you're awesome, Satya.
It's all good.
But I'm just saying, this is where the action is here.
I'm sorry, I forgot that you were there, and so some people told me, and so I'll check back once in a while. But everybody else, try to put your questions when we're doing this in the chat.
You know what we're going to do?
YouTube chat.
When we're done with this, we're going to copy and paste that entire YouTube chat.
Yeah.
And I'll post it.
Okay.
Paste it into the post. Paste it into the post so that it'll be there. So
okay.
I think that'll be helpful. This is a question somewhat related.
Okay.
To what I've just been getting into. Unless you wanted.
There's a lot related because people are commenting and asking questions about Elizondo and
Well, let's come back to it. Let me just
Okay.
read this. This is another one from Jason. I like this question. He just says, why is it that there are people on the news cycle that are informed, people like Joe Rogan, Tim Cook, news broadcasters, Neil deGrasse Tyson, and other so-called scientists that we see talking about the UFO subject, but who are still very skeptical and hold up their hands like, what evidence? Like none of these people have seen any of the proof. He says, where you have dozens of videos with dozens of connecting bits of information guaranteeing this reality, and yet none of this proof is taken into account by people in the mainstream. Do you think it's possible in the span of a 1 or 2 hour interview or podcast to talk to a host and put forward enough significant evidence from across the globe and credible sources actually to change their view on the subject? Great question. This is one reason I want to do Rogan. I listen to Joe Rogan when I can, and I feel overall he's a very, very excellent interviewer. And he's a master of what they call the long form interview. I like Rogan because it's very hard to BS this guy. It's not impossible. I listened to this bow-tied pro-vaccination guy just walk all over Rogan like Rogan was his, I was just shocked, actually. That guy is such an establishment stooge. But by the way, I'm not completely anti-vax, all right? But I do have questions about a lot of that stuff. And I think questions are a totally legitimate attitude to take with some of these vaccinations, which are backed by a multi-billion-dollar pharmaceutical industry. Anyway, Rogan totally dropped the ball with this guy. But overall, I like Rogan. And I think, but it's true what you say. Rogan and all these others, they have this attitude like, well, I don't really know. And with Rogan, it's interesting because early in his stand-up comedian career, he talked about UFOs all the time. Like he's clearly interested, and he seems to have walked back from it. He's buddies with Tyson, and he's, all these other skeptical types. So I think that my feeling with a lot of them, I don't think that they're necessarily getting their check from the cabal in order to diss UFOs. I don't think it works like that. But I do think that there's a definite cultural element for these guys. They have their market now. They've got their sponsors. They've got their public persona. And it's very hard for them to change their public persona. I know, I want to say for a fact, but I'll just say for almost a fact, that one of the leading skeptics of UFOs, and I will not mention his name because this was given to me by a UFO documentary maker who is fairly well known, who said to me that he had a beer after a shoot with this very prominent skeptic. And turns out that the skeptic is not 100% skeptical on UFOs. Over a beer in private without the danger being video recorded, this guy was absolutely willing to concede that there are some very baffling UFO reports. However, he has his own market, and for him to change his opinion would be severely damaging. Absolutely. This is the problem that these people have. The problem, they're all human beings.
Guide.
They're human beings that are public figures that are trying. Like, I believe that particular man tries to be intellectually honest. And I believe that he got into his niche, possibly believing everything that he said. But if you're intelligent enough and you encounter this information, you're going to be challenged by it. And an ordinary person, I say ordinary, who's not in the public eye all the time, with everyone watching you all the time, if you're not someone like that, you can have the strength of will to say, you know what, I'm going to modify my opinion on this. But if you are someone who has an established reputation, it's damned hard for those guys.
Yeah, but do you feel that? If
well,
you were
I am
to
aware.
Find out
if I were to find out what?
That somehow it came out and we knew definitively that it was military, I think most people in the field would be fine with that. Or if you found out that it was some...
If it were me, no, I've thought about this a lot. I've thought about this so much because, first of all, let me just say there's always pressure on me to be a certain way. I've had it from the first moment that I gave my first lecture in a public realm in 2001. It's always been there. I had folks like Steve Bassett early on saying, Richard, you're the historian. don't go into areas where you're going to weaken yourself. And I would just say, quiet. I'll do what I want to do, and I will have the opinions I want to have. I was pressured not to get into 9/11 research when I did it years ago. I said, the hell with you. I'll do what I want. So I've always been like that. If it turns out that I am radically wrong on something that I believed in the UFO field, I believe that I would immediately say I was wrong. I mean, I've changed my opinion on a lot of things in the UFO field over the years. So, but I can only say that because I've really thought about it a lot. And I believe there's only one way to ensure integrity, and that's the truth. And that's the only solution. But for some of these other guys, like, I think Rogan is intellectually honest, but I also think that a lot of these people are very wary. Like, they know which way the wind is blowing, and they're just afraid to make themselves more fringe than they are, is my opinion. So I think that there's an instinct. Years ago, 15 years ago, a mutual friend of Noam Chomsky and myself wanted to get me in touch with Chomsky. He said, you're like Chomsky for the UFO field. And I was like, that's cool. I grew up idolizing Chomsky. So a lot of people call Chomsky a gatekeeper now. I get it. But I just feel he's got his own limits. But Chomsky taught me a lot. Okay, a lot. So anyway, this person got us in touch. And I had a very brief email exchange with Noam Chomsky years ago. And it was very obvious. Like, I knew back then, there's no way Noam Chomsky was going ever to associate himself with a UFO conspiracy writer. Like, never going to happen. And that's really what it was. Chomsky was polite. He said something like, you seem like you do very good work in your field. Hope you continue onward. So that was nice, but he was never going to promote me ever. These people have their market, and it's really tough. So with Rogan, I do believe if I had an hour or two with Rogan, I would bring it. I would bring my A game. And I think that
we all know you'd bring it.
Yeah. I feel very confident that I could do very well on Rogan. I have not the slightest bit of nervousness or doubt in my mind. I would go in there, I would do well. In fact, any of these guys, I think that I could do it, but I have to be invited. I've got to be on it to do it. So with Rogan, we have to figure this out. We've got a lot of people who want me on there, but I personally have not tried to contact Joe Rogan, and maybe I should. I don't have his email. I don't have his contact info.
Domi was actually just saying that Rogan's been talking a lot about the Lazar documentary lately. He really loved it. So I don't know, it could just, that wind could be starting to blow this way. So
I just saw recently that Dave Rubin years ago had Jeremy Corbell on as a guest before Rubin truly blew up.
Really?
So it's fascinating. Yeah, that was like 4+ years ago.
He's probably interested as well. That's the thing. I think there are a lot of people who are really interested, but people like Rubin, who just went through a whole deplatforming situation.
From Patreon, yeah.
From Patreon. He is really probably steering away from those, as you would. You'd want to stick to a more careful line for a while until the dust settles,
I could imagine that.
Yeah, that's probably part of it. It's funny, people will comment things and then we move on, and it's, like Meta Strange was saying, no matter how skeptical you want to be, it's hard to deny 70+ years of cases,
Exactly.
And you were talking about that before. It's so true. People were just talking about vaccines a little bit here.
Oh.
And Brian suggested this. He said, dark journalists ask that everyone puts their questions in all caps, which I love this, because if there's comments,
good idea.
Sometimes it's harder to find the questions. So if you guys don't mind, just throw on the caps lock and write your question in when you have a question.
Excellent idea.
Otherwise, the comments are really fun. We love reading your comments. And because there's only 20 of us, we can go back and read them all.
Are people having fun here? I hope everyone's having a good time.
Yeah, the discussions are great.
Okay, good. Has Richard read any Foucault? I just see that from Mark H. Yeah, like a million years ago. I was never impressed by Foucault, I have to say. And I was less impressed by Jacques Derrida, who I consider the ultimate like awful intellectual, but Foucault, his predecessor, in my view, kind of one of the creators of postmodernism. I read Discipline and Punish like in the 1980s. I thought it was good at the time. I should reread it. Foucault's better than some of the other people who followed him, but I don't really know what to say about that at this point. It's been a while.
I was just laughing at what Linda wrote, hashtag Dolan chat family.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
I love that.
Yeah, I've gone away from a lot of the postmodernist thinkers. Like I always had an instinct against them. I'll just tell you a funny story. When I was 22, it's when I applied and didn't get the Rhodes Scholar. So I made the final cut. I was in what was called Region 2, which was the New York City region. And I had an interview. This is 1984. I forget where in Manhattan, but the lady who hosted it was a personal friend of Henry Kissinger. And her name was Martha Van something. I'll remember. So anyway, she was very sweet, very nice lady. Kept talking about how she once house sat for Henry Kissinger's dog. I hated Henry Kissinger back then. And I was really kind of in an anti, I wasn't in a very friendly mood. I think I did a terrible interview. But anyway, my point is, there is one of the people I was competing against for this was a woman I think she was at Yale or Columbia. She was really into Jacques Derrida. She kept talking about Derrida. And all I kept thinking was, you are totally intellectually bankrupt. Get away from me. But she was like the epitome of all of like this prissy, postmodern, smug intellectual culture that I always instinctively hated. And I hate it to this day. So I've always had, but I didn't know why I hated Derrida and the postmodernists the way that I do. And I do now. I think that they destroy common cultural meaning and actually have helped to cause a disintegration of our shared reality in our society. And I oppose them with every bit that I've got. I think they're dangerous. And Foucault kind of helped start that ball rolling. Foucault in the Frankfurt School. Okay, next.
I'm just seeing if I can blow this up so you can see some of their comments too. Oh, is that too
big? I've got a new prescription on the way. I've had a real hard time seeing with these glasses. My eyes have...
but wait, sorry. So you can tell them about the glasses because I keep promising Technomage. What is the status of Richard Sauter? See, I knew the answer, but I just thought I'd give it to Richard.
All right, so Richard Sauter. I've known Richard for many years. So Richard Sauter has written a number of books on underground bases, underground tunnels. I published one of them. I was his publisher, really for his best book, Hidden in Plain Sight. And I personally edited every page of that book. So it's a pretty decent read. Richard, as soon as that book was published in 2010, he was living in Pennsylvania at the time. He had moved there. He said to me, Richard, I need you to video record me. I'm going to make a public statement. And then I'm going...
Oh, you're telling the full story.
I am going to break into Minot Air Force Base and protest their nuclear weapons. And I said, really?
Okay.
I don't think that's a good idea, Richard. I don't think that's going to end well. But
this was a while ago.
This is 2010.
Some time ago, yeah.
In 2010. So I did record him, and I don't think I put it on YouTube ever. It was a crazy. I did not approve of this at all. What he did in his statement, and but anyway, he took a bus, went to Minot, got himself arrested, did 3 months in jail. Told me all about that experience. I was his lifeline during that time. He would write handwritten letters on pencil because that's all he was allowed. And I kept telling the outside world because I was his publisher and I thought, all right. Then he got out of that, came here to this house. I gave him all of his royalties that were owed to him at that time, and he moved to Ecuador. And he has been there ever since. He went...
I'm I'm just laughing at
And
how to get on a government list. That's right.
So
these are the steps.
I don't know what Richard's doing. Like he doesn't have a bank account to my knowledge, or he doesn't want one. Maybe he's got one. I don't know, but I have to wire him his money through Western Union. He's as off the grid as anyone I know. And he will not ever go on the grid. I'm sure he will not ever willingly come back to the United States.
You want to comment on his books? Because you always say to me, like, he has made a good contribution, though, with his...
Yes. Okay. Sorry. Well, I didn't say anything like truly bad, did I?
No. You're just
Richard
telling
and I,
the true story
we can make each other crazy. Like we have.
This is the group that gets these stories.
Richard and I have occasionally made each other crazy from time to time. His work, yes, has been valuable. I've said this many times. Like I would really like for him to have done a longer, thicker book with a little more detail than what he has. But the fact is, I do feel like with Hidden in Plain Sight, if, what he did was through a combination of his own research, archival research, and he did a fair amount of it, leaks from people that he considers credible. He did as good a job as you could do at that time without breaking into one of these places with a camcorder, and he described them pretty well. So I think he made a very good case. And I think he made a very good case that underground facilities could be literally anywhere in this world, right below your feet, possibly. The technology's been there for a long time, and I think he makes that a very clear case. So it's quite valuable. I did a lecture. It's on YouTube. It's on my YouTube channel in 7 parts because back then I couldn't upload long videos. But it's me giving a lecture on Souder's work. And to be honest, it's probably the best lecture that you'll find anywhere on Richard Souder's work.
I'm sorry, where is that?
On our channel. I gave this for the Rochester UFO meetup probably close to a decade ago. Well, in 2010, 2011.
And it is posted on YouTube?
It's on our channel.
So we just search Richard
It's
Souder
some of the earliest videos that I posted on that channel.
Okay, great.
So that's it. A lot of funny things that I could say, but I'll just have to pass about Richard.
Well, any you can share. This is the right place to share them.
Well,
by the way, I just want to say, Linda said a lot of us tweeted Rogan this week for interviewing you. So thank you to everybody who did. And Robin asked a question way back, and I'm sorry, I can't even scroll that far back, but I know you asked if I use remote viewing to help Richard's research. And I don't really. Like, for example, right now, I even am hesitant to read the Farsight Institute stuff on their remote viewing, although I saw what it was when I read what you guys were posting. Because of front loading. Front loading is a big problem with remote viewing. It's
basically giving you a predisposition to one answer or another.
Yeah, it's very difficult once you know too much to be able to separate it. And so it wouldn't be reliable. I could do it and see what I come up with, but I particularly really prefer to do everything blind because I actually trust what I get because I did it for so long. I can't trust it 100%, but I trust it more when I am absolutely blind to the target. So that's one issue that we have with that. So just to answer your question, not really. I don't really do that. Let me see.
She does some kind of freaky ability to find things that I lose anywhere in the house.
Yeah, he uses up all of those resources, me finding things for him.
Like it's uncanny, but we'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, it is.
It is uncanny.
It is, but he keeps me practicing in many different ways.
I honestly don't know how you do some of these things. But one thing Tracy has that's unbelievable, like off the chart level, is a visual memory. I don't think I've ever met anyone in my life who has as an amazing visual memory as you do.
I do have a really high visual memory, and I have always been kind of curious if this is why some people are good at remote viewing. Because when you're sort of trained to get these raw images, it seems to me that people who have more of a right brain development. I mean, we all use both. Some people are a little more right-brained. We pick up on those things easier. We're highly visual usually.
Yeah.
And so there just seems to be something about that. And even in some of the, the small cluster of the greatest remote viewers, Project Stargate, these were some of the things that I was hearing as well. Some of them they don't like to read at all. So usually that's a sign of being very right-brained. One person in particular described himself, and it was so identical to how I've described myself and my mother's described me as far as this highly advanced visual memory. It's so advanced, and it's really weird to say that, but it's unusual. It's
extremely.
It is really out on the range. So when he needs me to find things from a month ago or whatever, and we have tons of my brain, if I just stop and wait, as soon as my brain locks onto a picture, then the picture begins to fill out exactly where that thing is.
Yeah, I don't understand. I've never met anyone like that level.
It's I mean, it could be a paper in a huge stack, and that happens to all of us sometimes. It's just I think I've developed it.
Yeah.
So there's that. Thank you. That's just
totally true.
Some people watching might have the same thing too, and I would just tell you, you probably would find some part of remote viewing easier than a lot of people.
Anyway, I have another question here. I don't know if you've got something that
there's always
that's happening there.
Yes, there is the ESP Trainer app. I mean, you only get a small amount of things, but there are also remote viewing sites that will set up pictures for you, and so you focus on a target, and then 24 hours later you'll get picture feedback. So that's another step beyond the ESP Trainer that would be kind of fun, which I should look into and try and find those again for people.
I think Elephant in the Room says waste of superpowers.
Yeah, I know. I know.
Mark H,
I know. I feel like that's
kombucha I left under the bed.
Yeah, that's right.
I've got something here, but if you've got something,
yeah, you go ahead.
All right, this is a question from Alistair. He left it in the post below. Left it in the post. This is mainly for me. He says, Richard, you have been absolutely scathing in your talks about black flags or false flags and the hidden agenda. He says, I can sense in these lectures, the older ones anyway, some of the unhappiness that you allude to in your life when perhaps these lectures were delivered. Might be wrong, but no, that part's probably true. I would say when I was really starting with false flag lectures, that was 2015, 2016. I met Tracy in June of 2016, and I did a false flag lecture earlier that year that probably would have reflected that. So yeah, I could imagine that very much so. And then he says, so when you reveal such revolutionary information, do you ever feel threatened? Or have you been indirectly threatened? Have you ever been worried about how you might be destabilized? Has that happened to you? Or have you ever felt that you might be too close for your own safety? These are great questions. I can't answer any of those definitively. I will say that over time, there have been times when I have felt indirectly threatened. I have felt at times that I've been monitored. And what's that?
I was careful.
Oh, with the drink.
Yeah.
So, in the past, I used to talk about these once in a while, like 10 years ago or more, actually. It's been a while. In the early 2000s, mid 2000s, I would have white vans hanging out at this house all the time. I had a Time Warner cable guy shocked at how my internet connection was obviously being monitored, and he told me this to my face in 02, 03. And other things like that. I've had it. Yeah.
Your laptop was stolen from the living room with your dog in it. The dog was in the living room and his laptop was stolen. That
was a couple of years ago. That's right. That's right.
Yeah. And your son was home as well.
He was.
So I don't know if that's related or not, but it was interesting.
And I've said this before, and sometimes I forget, but as I was finishing my second volume of UFOs in the National Security State in 09, the summer of 09, I had both of my computers die one day apart from each other, which was very odd. I had my laptop at the time and my desktop at the time. And if it had not been for the fact that I was saving that book on a flash drive all the time, I don't know what would have happened to that book. That was 600 pages, and that would have been a horrible, horrible situation if I could not. I was just finishing the book. So that was very suspicious. And but the thing is, like, I've just told myself enough times now, you know, what else am I going to do with myself? I'm not going to get a job at Target. I'm going to do this. This is my life. There's nothing else that I'm going to do. And I'm just taking this to the finish line. And I don't really care. Like, I don't care. I want us to have a safe, happy life. I mean, absolutely. But I'm not going to compromise any of my work for even that. I want to complete the work that I know I was set out to do. And that's all I can say. But I've never been directly threatened. Like, I've never had anyone say, threaten me or my family or anything like that. So hopefully that'll continue. Ed Claytor writes, I have 3 rules. This isn't a question, it's a statement, but I kind of like it. 3 rules in order that I follow when I research or investigate something I see on the web, etc. for UFOs. 1, Schrodinger's cat. Investigate, don't just do a snap guess. I wish you could explain that a little bit better, but Schrodinger's cat is like, is it there or not there? And you don't know until you look at it. So Occam's razor. The simplest answer is most often the correct one. That gets me the most argument with other folks, he says. Yeah, Occam's razor, the simplest, but it's got to be the simplest that actually is true, right? So it can't just be the simplest explanation without looking at the facts. That's the only thing that I would say there. You have to genuinely look at the facts, and then you come to Occam's razor. You know, skeptics like Neil deGrasse Tyson or Michael Shermer or some of the others might, or some of even the worst ones like Robert Schaefer, who I think is, or, you know, James Oberg, they will cherry pick their data. And I don't think that helps. So you can't use Occam's razor like that. And then 3, he says, Sherlock Holmes quote, when you have eliminated everything, whatever is left must be the truth. Yeah, I like that. So
Technomaj just said that's not exactly Occam's razor. It's about creating unnecessary entities to explain the situation.
Very good. It's true. It's having a simplified, like, I guess a clean answer is the best. A clean answer that has explanatory power, I think, is really what you want. And that's the key. That's what Occam's razor would be. So, okay, I think I've gone through all of these.
Oh, you have? Okay, good.
Questions.
So we can go back up.
There's a couple of others, but we can come to those.
Okay, so if we miss some of your questions, I can only go back so far in the chat. And you really want something, I would say type it in again at the bottom.
I do have a Scott Santa one, but that can wait until.
Okay, hold on. Let's go down here. So there's Richard. Let's say hi to Sacha. Uh-oh, we've been ignoring Sacha.
Oh, well, I didn't answer the Richard Souter. What is the status of Richard Souter? His current status, I have no idea what Richard is up to. Now we can move on. Yes. Is Sacha writing? Okay.
Oh.
What are we doing here?
Joni, if this is you in the other chat room, you were doing great in the YouTube chat room.
It's Joe IC.
Oh, yeah. So Joni, you were in the right place. I think Elephant in the Room was just showing everyone that other people might be in the chat. So you were doing great in the YouTube chat. That's the one we monitor the most. Just to let you know, because other people might be wondering the same thing. So, but don't worry, you're doing great. Sacha, I hate to think of the Danny Casolaro syndrome.
Oh, man. If anyone who doesn't know who Danny Casolaro was, he wrote about something he called the octopus. And his story is an amazing story. It's amazing in the sense of what he began uncovering. One lead leading to another lead to another to another. But basically, Casolaro was a kind of a very small-time journalist who got into a major story and got himself suicided over it. He certainly didn't commit suicide, but he was made to look like a suicide in a West Virginia hotel room back in, I think, 1991 or 3. It was one of those years. Anyway, I don't know how much to get into it here. I wrote a little bit about it, I think, in one of maybe volume 2 of National Security. But It's a horrible, tragic story. And he was investigating a software theft, software called Promise, Prosecutor Management Information System. And I would encourage you go into the Casolaro story. It's amazing. And no, we don't want that to happen to me or anyone, to us. Anything else? I've got a question here if you don't have one.
Go ahead. I'm just going down. Wait, you see something?
Brian, Rogan's a hard-drinking, dope-smoking psychonaut. Can't see him being frightened of believing in UFOs. If he did, he seems to have been influenced by some of his skeptic buddies. Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah, me too.
I think that's how I would. And Brian White says, love Chomsky. Yeah, here's the thing. People nowadays, I find like a lot of the alternative crowd likes to trash Chomsky because it's true. Like he won't do 9/11 at all. He won't even, Chomsky won't even really honestly delve into the Kennedy assassination. I'm like, come on. Seriously, no. But my attitude is I don't need Noam Chomsky to do all of those things. Like I recognize everyone has their limit. I don't think that he is, I think it's unfortunate that he does dismiss them because he does have so much influence over many other intellectuals. And he's part of the reason, not the only reason, but part of the reason they won't go into 9/11 or even the Kennedy assassination. But it's also the fact that I suspect, A, Chomsky genuinely believes what he says, and B, even if he doesn't fully believe it, which he may not, he may sense that it's too damaging to him to go down that road. So he just won't do it. But I personally, and I'm sure many of you have learned way too much to dismiss him. Chomsky really taught me more than anyone else about media control back in the 80s when I didn't know anything about it, really. And I learned from him. And then I learned also from Gore Vidal, who really is my favorite writer. You know, if you were to find me in the mid to late 1980s, I would have told you my favorite writer anywhere in the world is Gore Vidal, the one that I get the most inspiration from. And by the way, it was a Gore Vidal book that Julian Assange was holding just the other day when he was dragged out of the Ecuadorian embassy by UK police. I've got a question here from Scott Santa.
I just wanted to mention something that Domi wrote earlier. I wish we'd organize as a group to promote hashtag Dolan on Rogan. You could also go through Dave Foley from Kids in the Hall. I just said it because I know you know who that is.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I do too, because I used to watch Kids in the Hall. He's a huge UFO fan. I had no idea.
And Rogan said he turned him on back to the subject.
Rogan turned Foley back onto the UFO subject?
Oh,
that's interesting. Okay.
I used to watch Kids in the Hall.
Me too.
Back in the day. They were great.
Lady.
Yeah, Foley was funny. I
remember him. He's great.
Yeah. That's good to know.
Yeah.
Well, we should try to do this. I'm going to read this from Scott Sanders. It's sitting in front of me here. So Scott had written, I just finished reading Jacques Vallée's latest Forbidden Science, Volume 4. I have Forbidden Science, but I don't know if I've got that. Anyway, in it, he quoted Herb Shermer. I'll tell you who Herb Shermer was in a minute, who reported that his ET told him, "Watchman, someday you will see the universe," end quote. So Herbert Shermer, back in the 1960s, was a police officer who had an abduction experience. And he did a regression, I believe, with Dr. Leo Sprinkle, pretty sure. So the being that abducted Shermer says, "Watchman," I guess the being's word for a police officer, someday you will see the universe. So Scott goes on, he says, "I'd like to hear a discourse on the change in contacts like this. We just don't read or hear about these types of," he calls them golden age contact stories anymore, whether from law enforcement, military, or civilian. It's like a phase that just dried up and went poof, gone, like the Carl Higdon story. Wondering about why that is. A cultural thing, something else? Thought this might be a good topic for a future show. It's a good question. I don't know.
I missed it because I was reading. I'm sorry.
It's all right. Yeah, but the nature of contact, like, is it the case? Like, are all forms of abduction now the kind where people are taken, they're manipulated, their memory is controlled, and their sperm or their ova are manipulated and whatever.
Versus,
well, like in the 60s and 70s, there were a number of these cases, not just the Herb Shermer case, where people were taken and they appeared to remember various types of communication with beings on board. And the beings, Betty Andreasen, if I'm remembering correctly, a lot of her accounts were like this as well, where you're being taken, you're being shown things. Even actually,
you're going through these windows. I remember stuff like that, going through these sort of windows.
The Linda Corteil case, and she's actually, that's not her last name, but we know her.
Yes. That was a literal window.
She was taken through a window, but in her case also, she was, I don't know. I don't think I remember that she actually had eggs taken, possibly. But I do know that in her case, she was shown images of, future environmental destruction. That was in 1989 when her experience happened. That's going back a bit too now. So I don't know.
So the question is if they're still all about reproductive,
or are they these types of encounters? Like, what do we remember from like what Yvonne Smith is telling us she's getting, or Barbara Lamb is getting, as opposed to someone like Dave Jacobs?
I don't know. I'm in this place right now with it where I'm reevaluating everything, because I do believe now that even ones that I thought were positive are suspect, because I am conceding that I think we are being cognitively hijacked. We are being manipulated, and I think I'm coming to terms with that even more than before. So I am at a place where I have to question everything that I didn't even question before. You
yourself had an experience which you have talked about.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of personal for you.
Well, there's more than one, right? There's a few. And so I think about them, and now after Carla Turner's stuff and David Jacobs' stuff, their research, and the possibility of some sort of artificial intelligence being highly developed out there. I know a lot of people don't think about that, but, so there's a virtual reality intelligence that they can use to affect us. I don't know. I think we can't even answer this question, because no matter what the research shows, I just think we just cannot get an accurate gauge on what's going on. That's just where I am. I really, even with the conscious experiences, can we rely on those? I don't know. I used to think that we could, and that those were the most reliable ones, but now I question that. I question it all. That we can rely on any of the things that we thought we did. Even though people who say they have super positive experiences, they're chosen, like in Yvonne's research, and they're told, positive things about the planet, how people need to make changes, and they seem very benign, right? They seem like very benign messages. What if that is just the screen on top of something else, where they don't really feel like they're hurting us, but they still need reproductive parts? They still need eggs. They still need this. They still take them, but they leave us with this screen memory on top of this message for the world. I mean, that's possible too. So
I have real suspicions over those messages that people get, like that Yvonne writes about in her book Chosen. I didn't really mention this directly to Yvonne because I didn't want to sound like I was attacking her. But all of her people who believe that they were chosen by extraterrestrials to provide a message of oneness and environmental healing and all of that, I'm just like, I have no belief in that. I have no belief that that's actually genuine.
Well, the thing is, that could be what they have been told, or what they're thinking, or how they're reframing it. That could be very real for them, right? It doesn't mean they're lying. It doesn't mean they're wrong.
No, I don't think any of them are lying. But I think that there is the real capacity for self-delusion that is going on there.
But what if it's not even self-delusion? I'm just saying, what if the other beings are creating it so that they believe that?
Yeah, it's possible. Sure. Totally
it's
possible.
Sort of a good deflection.
I mean, you've got people who
on the aliens' part.
These individuals, I'm sorry, they have you look at their life story, they have no ability really they're not influencing the world around them in any way. That they're just not. But they believe they've got this message. So now they are influencing the world to a limited extent because Yvonne is writing their stories and putting them together in this book. So, okay, there is that. But when I look at the message that they're being given, it's a kind of pointless message to me. Well, it's like, be a better person, ascend to a higher frequency, like change your frequency. Some of them say this, and we'll have some kind of ascension. Like, no, I don't. I'm sorry, I'm not on board with that. I'm not a believer in that. So when people are providing or getting this type of message, all I keep thinking is, nope, I'm absolutely like not impressed, not affected. I don't think that's.
I think they could be getting the message in that it's a deflection. Personally,
a deflection in what? What do you mean?
Like the ETs, the others. It would be a perfect way. Just give them that little bit of information and keep them busy with that over there. While we take care of the business we actually need over here. You know, it's like giving a dog a bone. Here you go. Yeah. Go fetch.
Yeah,
and but sort of lead them down a different road.
That doesn't really contradict what I was saying. I think it was just an interesting variation. You know, it's like,
yeah,
they could be. But I don't accept those claims at face value, like not even a little bit. I just don't.
Right.
And so anyway, I don't know how we got onto that. Oh, the question
Scott's question.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to read down.
And there is another one here from Mark Spearman, if you don't have any others.
Oh, there's lots of stuff. People are, let's see. Alistair saying, I think our perception can be bent even when we think we are being totally on. So it's right to be suspicious. Yeah, I think so.
Oh, and actually Technomage, I just want Technomage, sorry. I'm glad he asked this again because I wanted and I didn't yet. Have you had a chance to research the 19th century breakaway civilization theories of Walter Bosley? No, I would like to. Thank you for the reminder. Let me make a note of that.
Yeah.
Because this is...
Someone brought up Walter Bosley earlier. What were you talking about? You were talking about... Gosh, I saw it in the chat. One of you brought it up.
Well, I'm gonna find Bosley. I bet he'll talk with me. I'm making a note here. I can just spell his name right. Here we go.
If anyone remembers, if you wrote that question.
Are you talking to me or the folks?
Oh, it's getting dark in our room. Our house is actually kind of dark. We had the nice light earlier.
The sun is going down.
Thanks for letting us know. I'll get up.
Technomage, thank you for that question. Honestly, for reminding me.
Switch. And simulation hypothesis. That could all play in, right?
Sim hype, as we like to call it. Is the simulation hypothesis part of what Bosley's talking about?
No. I was just acknowledging what a couple people were saying, and it was about the alien discussion of deception.
And Linda here says, saw Yvonne talk where she's leaned toward Jacob's comments. Yeah, it's interesting with Yvonne. Like, don't get me wrong, I like and respect Yvonne Smith, and I feel she's one of the really good people in our field. And my sense is simply she lives in California and she doesn't want to offend people. That's my sense. Like everyone around her
says she's Switzerland. She's Switzerland?
Yeah, that's what they say about her. But I could also see, like, she trained with Bud Hopkins and Dave Jacobs, and I think John Mack.
That's so interesting.
So
and try to get some lights on.
She's got a. You're gonna get the.
Without bumping the microphone.
She's got that training, so there's a kind of foundation that she's got there from that whole school of thought. Once you get the living room light on.
Is that even better? Is that better?
Well, let's get this one.
Okay.
Hooray!
That's better?
Much better.
Okay.
But on the other hand, I've just got to say, like, she's a little wishy-washy about her attitude about the research. And I feel like what she does, I don't know, I guess if I were doing what she does, I feel that I would probably have different conclusions, and I would probably be inclined to do more hard-nosed research about it, but that's just me. But I don't do what she does, so
that's right.
I can't really criticize too much.
But it's interesting Linda, if you think she's leaning more towards Jacobs, because I did feel she was leaning a little bit in the other direction before, which, neither's wrong. What do we know? But
if you read Chosen,
that's interesting.
Chosen does not lean toward the Jacobs hypothesis.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
And that's her most recent book, and she co-authored that. So, you know, I don't really know where she is.
Well, it's hard to deny some of the things Jacobs is saying. I mean, that we need to go down deeper and deeper and deeper, and if we don't, we're dealing with memories that are manipulated.
Yeah, just to remind people, I asked David, and David won't be doing any more interviews. I can guarantee it. Like, I had to really. He almost did not want to do that last interview with me that we got on YouTube and that we have for members. I'm very glad we did it. And I asked him, he wasn't being recorded, but I said, so what do you think about some of the people who talk about these other types of alien encounters that are very positive? And he was actually very diplomatic, and he didn't trash talk anybody, but he did make it very clear that his opinion was they were not going deep enough.
Yeah.
And you cannot accept first or even second memories at face value. You've got to go deeper, because there's a whole system of memory management that goes into play, in his opinion. And it's only when you go deep. Now, the criticism of that is obvious. Criticism could be, oh yeah, sure, you take someone's actual memory and you twist it until it conforms to what you think it should be.
Right.
I just don't think that's what his process is. I don't think so. Like, if you read Walking Among Us, the people, like, he's got transcripts. It's like very, very clear.
Yeah.
He's obviously not pushing these people into one conclusion or another. So, but he's gone very deep with them, and he doesn't charge.
He has.
He doesn't charge. It's a really significant thing.
It is. I don't know how
else,
he does that. I mean,
well, he made money at Temple as a professor, so he had a source of income.
Right.
And this isn't to demean the other folks, but like with Barbara or Yvonne or a lot of the others, they charge. And if you're going to pay money to get your hypnosis, let's face it, most people don't have an infinite bank account. It's going to run out of money. So in Jacob's assessment, most of those people probably don't have enough sessions to get to where you really need to go to get to the truth.
Yeah.
And then there's the whole thing with a lot of the researchers or people who do regression therapy. Are you doing therapy to help someone emotionally deal with something, or are you trying to get to the truth? And they're not the same thing.
That's right.
So Jacobs, he's not a therapist. He's trying to get to the truth.
Yeah.
And that's what and not everyone has got that attitude. Mm-hmm. Jacobs, I will just say, like, people will critique him, but I don't know any other abduction researcher. I don't know any researcher, period, who has gone to his level of trying to do counterintelligence, basically, on who these other beings are and what their agenda is. And he may be wrong, but no one else, to my knowledge, has gone as far as he's gone with that.
No, I mean, sometimes I feel like that's more along the lines of Carla Turner.
Well, Carla Turner, yes. And we should go back to talking about her. We still read Carla Turner at night. I read Taken until you fall asleep.
Yeah.
But it's kind of sweet, but you fall asleep early.
I know that's the problem.
But anyway, Carla, she had a similar approach. I will just say I find Carla Turner to be a bit credulous with some of the people that she's interviewed in Taken. Mm-hmm. I'm finding it now in a review of it. But I still respect her, and we'll go through the rest of that book and see what we think.
Alistair says...
oh, hey, Alistair.
He's here. Stands to reason if you can control a person's reactions and overrule their will, you can make them think or remember what you choose. I need to go get those things that Gary...
Does cough.
Thank you, Gary McKinnon, by the way, for suggesting for my cough. I still have it. I don't know what is going on, but I have these little cocoa butter things that he suggested is helping. So I'm going to get some more.
Yeah, what Alice is talking about, I think, is the extraterrestrials, like controlling the abductees' will and reaction and so forth.
I know, you make a great point there.
Like giving them a massive dose of scopolamine to get them to be compliant or whatever.
Okay, by the way, before we go, well, no, I'll bring it up after. Okay. If they were here for good, why make it so difficult to extract their good intentions? Mark says it's a deception, yeah. When I saw Travis speak at Niagara, He said there were memories that he didn't want to explore further.
Yes, exactly.
That's interesting.
I'll tell you, Travis Walton is one of the most honest, sincere people that you'll ever meet in the UFO field. Absolutely. And he went through hypnosis. I think it was with Leo Sprinkle. Not sure. But at one point, they got to a memory where Travis was so stressed out that they, I guess, his regressionist, might have been Leo, who thought he could die, like of a heart attack, literally die. He was that upset, and they had to pull him out. Travis talked to me about that, and I think he's mentioned it in public a few times. So, for sure. Technomage, you should do an intelligent disclosure on Carla Turner. Absolutely, we're going to.
Yeah, we've been talking about it for a long time, but of course, then we get...
No, it will happen.
Yeah, it will. We want to.
Sometime this year, for sure. I have tremendous respect for her. So we'll make it happen. And not enough people talk about Carla Turner.
Brand said, hard to say when we are dealing with life forms that seem far beyond us. Exactly. David, our military is probably compromised. Probably. I agree. I know you agree.
I believe that.
Yeah.
There are too many points of leakage that make this my opinion, where we have human-looking infiltration. It's not just the U.S. I think the UK. I think probably the global military scene. And that would mean maybe the Russians, maybe the Chinese. I don't know for a fact, but if these beings know what they're doing, if they've got any intelligence, that's what they would do. But, you know, there are these unconfirmed, maybe unconfirmable leaks and claims of totally human infiltration of CIA, Pentagon, World Bank. I remember hearing this one. You know, the British military as well. I heard about this. And then there was a case that Nick Redfern wrote about in his very first book, A Covert Agenda. It's a good book. I asked Nick about this recently, and he remembered it, and I can't remember the exact location, but it was a situation where British military were deeply concerned over the fact that these other beings could enter and leave their secure premises at will and go through records at will. And that's in A Covert Agenda from the 90s. I think there's a lot of this type of stuff going on behind the scenes. I've believed for a long time that the real situation is one of highly compartmented military groups that are charged with dealing with this situation. And, you know, having just recently re-interviewed Frank Frascino, who, by the way, I've got to get his part 3 out for members. I'll do that very soon.
Yeah, that one's not going public. That's members only.
That's members only.
And it's not out yet.
I just need to clean it up, and I don't want to drop some visuals into it. But anyway, with Frank, it becomes very clear that there was a definite confrontational, combative relationship that the U.S. military had, at least in the 1950s, with these other beings. Way more than we kind of let ourselves to believe, or that we normally talk about. And if it was that combative in the 1950s, I don't see why it's necessarily any less now.
Okay, here's a question from K2WS, because I don't know what your name is, or I can't remember. Where's the evidence on alien infiltration, Richard?
Evidence is maybe too strong a word. K2WS.
Did we say evidence? I'm sure we didn't mean
stories, claims, leaks, that kind of thing. So, but there's enough of them that I think it's probably right. You know, Linda Moulton Howe talked about this many times, and Linda's had a lot of whistleblowers who come to her, I know, and sometimes people critique that, but this one I've always believed. She had a DIA guy she sat with years ago who told her about the World Bank having an infiltration by them of ET. I think of the famed remote viewer, Pat Price, and I know you could say, well, remote viewing, what do you make of it? But make of it what you will. I tend to find credibility with what Pat Price said, which was one of the several ET facilities on planet Earth. There's a place called Mount Hayes, Alaska. And Pat Price stated that that place has protection within the United States government structure somehow, that you can't get to it. It's protected by us. And if that is the case, that means, well, something. There's some level of interaction or control that they exert over us to allow that protection to take place. There was a story that I remembered getting from the late Elaine Douglas about CIA having human-looking ETs working within it. And admittedly, it's a kind of a vague story that she got. And there's others. So I don't think that counts as evidence. I will grant you that. But I think it's probably the case that they've got their hooks into us. To me, if I were them, it's the first thing I would do is to get my control over the human infrastructure to the extent possible. And by the way, we do have someone who's a member of our group, and we have not talked with in too long a period of time, who has a fairly detailed account of infiltration by them financially into our infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I think there's a lot of that going on. And
We actually have two.
yes.
We have
Yeah, we
two.
do. We have two. So the question is for someone like myself, let's say I gather all of this information together. How do I present that? Like, is that something that I can present in a credible way without myself getting trashed? Like, if I can't back this up, or if the people who present this to us, what if they can't fully back it up?
Right.
Then what do I do with that? It's really tricky.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really tricky situation.
It is. Okay.
Right.
So many little comments here. Jacob's videos on hybrids.
Oh, I just saw a Pat Price thing at the bottom. Elephant.
Yes, Third Eye Spies seem to insinuate that maybe Pat Price was disappeared, could still be alive. I know, I think about that.
So I got a little hijacked by Russell Targ in our interview when I talked about Pat Price. I was a bit surprised.
No, not two infrastructures, two, not informants.
What are we talking about?
Elephant in the Room was just saying, because we were saying we had two, not two infrastructures, two people that we're talking to.
I'm totally confused. Oh, two people who, yes. Right.
Okay.
Regarding to Pat Price, just saying in Third Eye Spies, the documentary, there's a lot about Pat Price in that. And the documentary creator, Lance Mungia, interviewed individuals who believe Price was murdered and made, I thought, look,
I've got to get those.
this has been long held belief that Price was murdered. When I mentioned this to Russell Targ in the interview, Russell was like, well, not necessarily. I'm like, what are you talking about, man? Price was taken down. The question is by whom? And are you taking one of those little organic cocoa butter? Show the good people. May I?
Yes.
Organic. This is courtesy of Gary McKinnon's ideas.
And thank you for the other suggestions.
Tracy didn't like how they taste, but I think they're kind of nifty. I think they taste all right. Look at that face. I can tell you love it. I know my wife. That's like an I love the cocoa butter taste expression, right?
Mm-mm.
Okay. There you go.
They were chocolate flavor. This would be a whole other discussion. When he first suggested it to me, I thought, oh, goody, I get to eat chocolate all day. No, this tastes like butter.
I think they're good. I had one.
But they work. They seem to be working okay.
Out of sympathy, I had one. I thought it was good. So relating to Pat Price, I think he was absolutely murdered. Question is by who? And here's the interesting thing that comes out in Third Eye Spies. Hadn't known. Pat Price was a Scientologist.
I know.
So, and what he was doing, and Russell did agree, he did admit this.
Mm-hmm.
Pat Price, like the Superman of remote viewers,
mm-hmm.
was giving classified information
all the time.
Not to the Russians, but to the Church of Scientology. Like
on a regular basis.
That's right. And actually, didn't this actually help the Church of Scientology in their, like, you know, the whole point of the Church of Scientology is that they are now established as a religion.
Yes.
And as such, they have all kinds of immunities.
That's right.
From taxation. This is how they can take over the entire town of Clearwater, Florida, and parts of LA.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. And just dominate these towns with all their money. And I want to make sure that I got this right from Russell, but I got the implication that Russell argued that Pat Price gave them important information to help them in their lawsuits so that they could.
Oh, I don't know.
I
can't comment. I don't remember that.
Yeah, I may be getting that wrong. But anyway, the point was that Pat Price was giving the Church of Scientology information they had no business having. And the theory is that the Soviets didn't kill him, that the U.S. killed him for that reason. Because they had the Superman of remote viewers and they couldn't control this guy.
They had a leak they couldn't control. So who?
Right.
Yeah. I mean,
it could have been the Russians, for sure.
I suppose.
He was a threat to them, but he was also a threat to the United States.
He's a threat to anyone who has secrets, right?
That's right. And that was kind of Russell's
all those super
fascinating story. Third Eye Spies was good.
No Sasquatch, but there's a gray alien back here. These guys are like, I see a Sasquatch in the painting.
Wow. No, not really. It's not. There's not. The Squatch isn't there.
Yeah, the Pat Price thing is so sad. Like, he just seems like this amazing man that was so gifted. You know, when I talk about front loading all the time, I don't think Pat Price had to even worry about that with remote viewing. Like, he was so psychic that it didn't matter. So yeah, I suppose he would be, you know, biggest threat number one in the world, essentially. Yeah,
that's the way Russell would put it, and you could make a good argument.
But Uri Geller made this interesting comment in the movie, didn't he? That that he wouldn't be offed. Whoever wanted him the most would keep him. They was someone who was that powerful. They'd want for themselves, for their own power gain.
Oh, and that would be the theory that he was disappeared instead of killed.
That's right.
Well, maybe.
So I don't know. I thought that was kind of interesting.
I asked Russell a couple of things about Geller, and I think Russell has a lot of respect for Uri Geller's psychic abilities, but he also said Geller is not an intel person, and so, you know, take his opinions on that with a grain of salt.
The Virginia case, another good topic for intelligent disclosure. Yeah, that would be
good one. Yes. Mm-hmm. You know what I want to do? I want to get AJ Gevard onto a Richard Dolan show interview. AJ and I are very friendly, and he agreed to do it last fall. And then we just can't.
Something happened. No, there was he couldn't do it. It was a really bad time for him.
But AJ is Brazilian. He's really the most prominent Brazilian UFO person, I would say. And we could do a Virginia discussion in that context, or we could just do one on our own. I'm comfortable enough to talk about it for an intelligent disclosure. So
yeah, that would be really cool.
Well, yeah, thank you for that. That's a great suggestion. Interesting case. We're getting up on 2 hours, and I'm not trying to wrap this up prematurely, but I will tell you, my eyes are starting to hurt. I'm a little tired.
Okay. I have a very important thing that I saw. I don't know where it is, but someone said, Happy Game of Thrones. What are you talking about? Is a new Game of Thrones out?
Oh, if that's the case, then we have to stop this right now and get that on.
Yeah. Okay. So Jason, I don't remember seeing you in here yet. Please consider this scenario.
He wrote some good questions.
You did. I saw you in there. Please consider the scenario here. Tic Tacs, not saucers, are seen nearby
the Nimitz group.
Yeah, go ahead. They intercept.
They intercept, and soon after, government officials come to take the tapes. Were they nearby already? Why were they so soon to board? If I was alien, I don't think it would be plain white Tic Tac shape. Sounds like some plain shit a U.S. engineer drew up for simplicity. U.S. made craft. They were doing, okay. Well, the thing about the Tic Tac UFO, from at least what we have been told, is that that object defeated the encrypted naval communication system that changes its encryption every 15 minutes. And they know that it defeated that encryption system because when the F-18A Super Hornets were commanded to vector at a certain location known as the cap point, the Tic Tac was there waiting for them. So it was, I don't know how else you could interpret that. It knew where these jets were going to be, and it was there waiting for them. So that's an incredible breach of encryption protocols. And not only like would it mean it knows how to defeat the encryption, but it knows how to interpret the messages and the lingo. So that could actually speak to, if it's a black agency that is familiar with, you know, the whole US system, they might conceivably be able to do that. But
that was just what he added.
So doing an exercise, hoping not to be screwed with, but when the jets came nearby to their Tic Tacs, they left and then came to take the evidence. I have to admit, like that could be a credible theory. It all comes down to something we don't know the answer to, which is how far advanced is our own black world technology? That's the big question. So the one thing we can, and that's 2004, keep in mind. This is not 2019. Tic Tac event happened 15 years ago. So if, you know, did we have the ability 15 years ago to go from hovering to 10,000 miles per hour like that? You know, maybe a US engineer designed it, but maybe it's a Tic Tac design because it's just an excellent kind of plan form for working through the lower atmosphere or upper atmosphere. You know, the disc shape of a flying saucer, the lenticular shape of flying saucer, from what I have learned, is ideally suited in many ways for upper atmospheric and space type travel. And it could very well be the Tic Tac design. It's not radically different from a disc, frankly, in my view, in certain ways. Maybe it too is very well designed. And so it could be that the design is simply universal. It doesn't have to be a US engineer thing. But anyway, I have to admit, like, you've got a good point there. I got to think about that. What do I think about the proxy war suggestion that several researchers have made? I'm not sure what other researchers make. We live in a world of proxy wars. Like the US policy lives through proxy war, but I don't know if that's what you're talking about here. This is Jay Allen. If you can expand on that a little bit, Jay, I would do my best to answer. But warfare by indirection and deception and by having proxies is definitely a thing, without a doubt. Covert actions of all sorts for purposes of deniability is the rule, and that plays into the whole world of false flags that we live in. But hopefully, I don't know if there's UFO researchers talking about proxy wars of some sort. The one thing I have to say, like UFO researchers, by and large, they know UFOs. They do not, generally speaking, know the world of international relations very well, in my opinion. They certainly don't know that a lot of the history, military history, particularly well. And look, I'm not saying I'm the best expert. I'm not, but I know more than they do. And so when I don't really see many of them talking about this type of proxy war thing, unless it's some make-believe thing like their secret space force having proxy wars on Mars. So, but I don't know if that's what you mean. And if it is, then just tell us here. How are we doing? I'm wondering if we should wrap this up soon.
Sure. Someone, I just want to acknowledge this. Somebody just asked, where is it? Game of Thrones Sunday night, by the way. Thank you, Brand, and everybody who's who was mentioning that.
Alistair says, love the Dyatlov work. Tracy, more
yes,
please.
a few people just said that. Thank you so much. You know, we were saying at the beginning of the video, there was so much website work to do. I haven't been able to get too far in to be able to do a part 2 because there are so many details, and there's a lot of details available out there, but I swear it's like telephone. You know, people are saying this about the case, and then when I go into these deeper sources, those things aren't true.
One person mentioned in a comment about the Dyatlov, I forgot to mention this to you, but he talked about the video that we watched, that we listened to, that we initially thought was very good.
Lamino or something.
Yeah. And it's a very like well put together.
I didn't know that. I didn't get to read all the comments.
20-minute.
Yeah, it's like 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Excellent. But as soon as I dug into the books of the people who actually went.
Show the good people the books. You got them here? You got a few of them?
I do. Da-da.
That's.
Da-da. Okay. This woman, Svetlana, is a Russian journalist, and she was, I think in 2008, the woman who first wrote the very first article in English about the case. And then she ended up reading a book because she got really deep into it, and she was excited by how many people were interested in it. This one, now these have been, I was directed to these two as the most credible cases.
Donnie Icar.
She knows this case inside and out. She's a journalist who's been involved for a long time. And Donnie went there and spoke to a lot of the people himself. She spoke to a lot of people herself. They've been through all of the actual forensic documents. And so that's why I'm sticking with these two. That video Lamino did that was really good. At the end, he said, I think it was the stove. That was his his theory, because he felt there was proof that there was food that was cooked in the tent. That was what he got. And so he thought there must have been a fire, the tent filled with smoke, and that explained the, jumping out of the tent and blah, blah, blah. Immediately when I got into these sources, they said, no, there was, the logs were found beside, there was one, I think it was one log found outside of the stove, and it had never touched fire. Like it had never been in that stove. So thus making that whole theory null and void.
The log was where?
It was beside the stove. It had never been put in the stove. They had never cooked anything on it. I'm sorry. That's what happens when you read too much of it.
Was there anything in the stove then? Or were there other
There was nothing in the
logs
stove. They said that it had possibly been used to warm them, but no food had been cooked in it. Now, I've just heard something opposite again, talking about how they cooked a meal in there the last night. So I'm going to go with these sources, but if I have to, I'm going to go back and find out exactly what source each thing is coming from. Because
there's one thing that I find.
This is the problem with this case.
Right. There's this source material is so critical to know. And it's hard to get to.
It's why it takes me so long, because I want to know. Those videos, there was another video that came out.
Were there footprints or no footprints leading out of the tent? And on and on and on, like what we talked about in when we chatted about this, which is on our site. So there's just a lot of confusion about the evidence itself.
Well, and part of that is because, so with the footprints, people testified different things. So some people testified that the footprints were right outside the tent. Some people testified the footprints were way down. But the thing is that they all said there were footprints. There are other people out there saying that footprints are BS, but there are pictures of the footprints.
Right.
They did lead down from the tent.
Right.
And there were 9. They weren't there for the entire way, but they were there for partial of it, And there were no other footprints. So it's kind of odd.
It's very weird. My inclination, I know less about this than you, but I'm inclined to think that somehow they were murdered. Somehow they were killed. By what? By whom?
Well, then it comes back to sort of what Frank was. But I did get to read that, because someone said, I think you were addressing. Someone said the Farsight Institute remote viewing was saying it was a parachute bomb or something like that, and Frank was saying, well, there were no. There would have to be some force on the body, and with a bomb, bodies would be spread apart. There would be, and you would see probably fragments in the environment, right? It's the thing. There's nothing in the environment, and there were no external wounds on the body. So no bullet holes, no arrow holes, no strangulation marks, no bruises, no nothing. But on the inside of their bodies, there was all sorts of damage, like a broken skull, multiple broken ribs, all sorts of stuff. Now, I will say on the 2 bodies that were under the tree, they found blood on their fingers. I think we talked about that. So they had some weird stuff going on. And I heard
like some kind of conflict or some kind of struggle that was going on.
Yes.
It looked like.
Yes. So there was some weird stuff there.
Yeah.
I watched another video on it earlier, and they were saying that there was skin found in the tree. Now, I've only heard that in that video. Excuse me. So I need to go and find if that's true or not. So this is why it's taking me a long time. I need to find if these things are true or if it's like telephone. They're being spread around, you know. And we also have the problem of translation. All the original documents are in Russian. So we have to take the translation at face value.
Yeah.
But there's all sorts of problems with the people who reported, who did the original testimony, you know. And I think when, you know, we were talking about the footprints, I think when, you know, they got these different testimonies, the students in particular that were part of the search parties weren't really being careful, weren't really thinking about it. And so my guess is they were asked after the fact, were there prints and footprints, and where exactly were they? And they had to kind of remember, like, where were they? Because we weren't really paying attention to that.
All we did was steal their vodka.
So I think that's why you get some of them saying, Bill, they were right outside the tent, the students.
Possibly.
And I think it was actually the military colonel who said they were down the slope. But who's telling the truth? I don't know.
You're coughing too much. I'm going to have to cut you off.
Everybody's, thank you, you guys.
Someone says, wasn't UFO activity in the area at the time? There
was, and that's
odd lights, and that is a possible connection.
Yeah, we'll look into that more.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes, smashed bones. Yes, fracture to the skull of one, and that was one of the three that was at the, you know, the upper three.
How radioactive were the
clothes?
Clothes
were radioactive.
Did you read that?
Yes. The clothes, they may not be anything because two of the people worked around radiation. And so that might not be what we're thinking, you know, linked to UFOs.
Oh, right. That's right.
So, excuse me, it's possible that that's not a good lead. Anything. But again, I will go deeper into it. And when I find out the actual, you know, base information, I will let you know. So,
all right, let's cut this for now.
I know I could
cut this now.
Sorry.
You could, because now we're going all Dyatlov and you're excited, but your voice is gone and it's been 2 hours. And I'm just going to say, love this, but we have to wrap this up. I want to, if Frank is out there listening, I just want you to know, Frank, I've collected all of your detailed comments, and I haven't yet, but I intend very soon to go through them, and I will give you a personal reply. And I just want to thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I will get to all the comments under Dyatlov when I can, and we'll put out a part 2.
Now that you all know, we get about 500 or so messages plus per week.
You see why we take a long time.
Just understand it is true, and we do our best. I think at some point, you know, we've got Evelyn now working with us on this website, and she is doing everything she can to resolve all these transition issues. But I think down the road, we're going to need a third person.
We definitely will need someone to help with the
administration.
You know, I just want to say, Metastrange wrote an email and he didn't respond. I said, can I read this on the chat? And basically what it was, you know, APRO is this real missing piece. You know, with APRO being gone, he was saying, would we ever consider doing something like that? We seem like a logical pair to sort of take over and then have a group who works together, you know, like have a lot of people working together to do the same type of thing. Just thought I'd throw that out to him at the very last minute.
Do you want to do that?
I can't.
That's like,
the thing is, it would be amazing to do if I had a clone.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you, a few years ago when I was in MUFON exile, after they banned me informally from all of their symposia, after I spoke out in 2011, anyway, it's a long story. So I thought, you know, hell with MUFON. Maybe I should start a competitive UFO organization. Could I make any headway? And I think I told you about this, didn't I?
Yeah. Thing is, I think it would be a great idea to do this. It's just
well, it's a huge amount of work and undertaking.
That's
and
exactly where my mind goes
I
right
just-
away.
I don't know how I could really, and we together, we would have to stop everything we're doing and do that.
Yeah, like the books would be off the shelf, the audiobooks would be off, or we just wouldn't be able to do those things.
It would be really hard. Like I know Jan Harzan right now running MUFON, it's all he does, and he does it all the time. So yeah, it's a good idea in a way, but in another way, it's not a good idea. So I'm going to say no for now.
But it would be great to support people who did want to do it.
Yeah. And I feel like with MUFON, there are definite problems with MUFON, and they have no money, and they don't all have they've got good people, but they could do better. And I don't know how it'll ever be better, truthfully, without money. So I think Jan's done a lot with what he can do, and he can always do more, I suppose. But I think at least I don't have the suspicions that I did have in the past about MUFON. I think that they're worth supporting now. Okay, are you writing? You're just writing to people. It was fun hanging out when we are a small group. That's what Tracy's about to send. And there it goes. Okay.
It's true. It's so nice when it's a small group like this. It's great. So
Mark wants to know if giving a thumbs up helps.
On this,
Makes us feel good, so you can do it. Yeah. The thing with the YouTube, and then we really will wrap this up. So with YouTube, our goal is I want to produce content that helps get us a higher profile, and also to get valuable information out there. Because if we're going to have influence in this community,
or outside of the community,
the currency is social media.
I know.
It's a big part of it.
Yeah.
And so a year ago, I'd had a YouTube channel for years, since 2008, and I did nothing with it. Nothing. It had 8,000 subscribers, despite the fact that I did nothing with YouTube. And that was kind of amazing to me. But a year ago, a little more than that, I initially, on my own, this is before even we were doing anything with it, and before we had Lori helping us, I just decided I'm going to reinvent and re-energize my YouTube program. And I started putting Richard Dolan shows on there. And that started people paying attention. And then in the summer, we started doing our thing, our live streaming. And so now we went from 8,000 a year ago, we're past 60,000 now. So it's really amazing growth. And I want to keep doing that. So I think that social media, YouTube subscribers, that's what gets people like Joe Rogan and others to pay attention, ultimately. If you don't have the followers, they don't really care, generally speaking.
Yeah.
Sometimes they will, but a lot of times they won't.
It's almost like the Black Mirror episodes, like we always talk about. There's one that was all defined by likes. Everything was defined by likes.
Yeah, so for public videos,
it's too bad.
I do, it helps for people to do that. And one of the things, again, with the Patreon question, the reason we should consider Patreon is so that we can actually have well-produced videos. And
we could have a staff person so we wouldn't get so far behind on admin.
Because here's the thing, like I could write a good 60-minute documentary video.
We know
absolutely. I could do it. A 60 minutes, that means, I just translated 8,000 words or less. That'll give you an hour. And I could so easily do that. But I don't want to do a poorly produced, junky looking video. I want it to be nice, but we need someone with video editing skills. We need someone who can actually spend the time that we have to pay to do this. That's what we need. And we don't have that person right now. We have our alien buddy who we've asked him to talk to about it.
It's kind of cushy.
But
that's right.
He or she or it is not willing to do that. Seriously, we don't have someone to do the video editing.
They're talking about a Dolan app.
So Patreon could help for the
Dolan
video.
app?
And a Dolan. Why not?
No.
All right. So
Okay.
what I'm going to do tonight, I'm going to publish the text version of the Julian Assange thing I did today. And I want to do that on a regular basis. Anytime I write a live stream, I want to just do the text version only for members of our site. Not that everyone cares. Not everyone will read it, but it'll be available. And I think I'll do that.
Just one last time, if you guys have any problems with anything, don't hesitate to email. Let us know technical problem. Usually it will come up saying that. I sent an email on MailChimp last night. You can use that. There's a link as well. Just let us know if anything's going wrong with PayPal or whatever. Because we want to get everything streamlined and we want those problems to come up so we can get them all fixed.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
I think we will. Today was a bit frustrating for you and for me to have to deal with some of these issues. You particularly, really. So, but I think we'll get through it. And for any of you guys who've had issues with PayPal and the membership, like Tracy said, let us know, and we will fix it as soon as possible. We really try to be on top of this same day. You're smiling. What?
Just smiling at what Joni and everyone is saying. Elephant in the room. When Richard says time to wrap it up, that usually means 30 minutes more.
So true.
I know. And we'll be doing this to each other. This is our sign. Okay, it's time. It's time to wrap it up.
I learned. Wait, you got this from me. I got this from Krusty the Clown on The Simpsons.
You're right.
Hey,
See, here he goes.
Wrap it up. He did this kind of thing.
I think Richard enjoys this so much, hanging out with you guys.
I love it.
This is why this happens. You get the 30 minutes. He just keeps going because he's here now. He's enjoying it. He just doesn't want to go.
I totally love this. Totally. But we really need to. Like, you're not feeling well. They got to go.
They probably have to go.
Well, they can just go anytime. They can just hang up.
That's true.
They can pick it up later. But
that's true. Anyhow,
all right.
Thanks for hanging out with us. It's
been
really
great.
Fun. It's always fun.
We do this at least once a month. And
yes.
So, okay. And actually, I felt a little bad because in the last couple of weeks, I feel like I personally was producing a little less for our site than I want to. But I think things are in a good way now. And I should be back to what I normally like to do.
Yeah.
A couple of off the cuffs and some more just informal audio. And now I want to do more writing for the site.
Cool.
So. All right. Well, I hope you guys have enjoyed this. It's definitely been good for us.
Yeah.
Right? Would you say?
Right. Yep. Absolutely.
All right. Well,
bye, Sacha. We know you're in the other room. I'm
yes.
sorry we forgot to look at your chat. Well, all right.
We think you're great. And definitely hope everyone has a good rest of the day or evening or whatever time it is for you. We're going to go have I think we'll do a dinner.
Yeah.
All right.
Sounds good.
And everyone have a very good night. And we'll be in touch soon.
Cool.
Bye.